background. And so at Tales of Turning, what we do, so these days we know how much social media is part of our everyday lives and the digital world. On the global average is that people spend 2 hours and 23 minutes a day online. And we know the harm it's doing with misinformation, hate speech, polarization. So our question at Tales of Turning was, really, how can we take something that has become really toxic and use it for good? The background in our organization is in conflict mediation, psychology, narrative therapy, so really a deep understanding of people. And we decided to combine that with technology and social media to start reaching people at scale, and also to amplify the incredible work that has been done by organizations on the ground. So we work on digital peace building, gender-based violence prevention, child online safety, preventing xenophobia, and also mis and disinformation around climate change. What we do is we take the social media listening tools that marketing companies use, and we use it to scrape big data from public social media. This is a really incredible way to get a lot of interesting information and to do in-depth conflict analysis. We can see how people are grappling with different issues, how they're talking about them, and really the nuances of the conversation. So we get really unexpected insights from this research that we do. We work in the local languages of any country that we're working in, but it also gives us insight into the colloquial language that people are using, so that when we develop engagements, dialogues, workshops, we can really meet people where they're at. Another thing that we use this data for is to build early warning systems. So we get alerts when there's warning signs of violence or rising levels of mis and disinformation and hate speech. So this is an example of the early warning system that we build. When there are spikes in the conversation, we would get an alert. Then what do we do with that? We're all about making an impact. What we've done is we've taken conflict mediation and dialogue facilitation that you would do on the ground, in person, and we've adapted it to the online environment. And there are 3 parts to this. The first part of the methodology is to calm the conversation. We all know how polarizing the online environment has become, and it's very difficult to actually have dialogues online. Disinformation is designed to make people angry and afraid, and it's very difficult to have meaningful conversations when you're feeling angry and afraid. So what we do is we developed a methodology called social truth queries. And we've done 3 studies with the University of Washington and the University of Zurich that have proven that this methodology reduces mis and disinformation by up to 82%. So this graph is, I really like this graph because it's a graphic representation of how it calms the conversation. So the gray is the control group where social truth queries were not applied, and the blue is where it was applied. And you can see it decreases people resharing this information, trusting its accuracy, and believing that it's true. What I really love about this is that my background is in psychology and also neuroscience, and there's neuroscience behind this. So when we get angry and afraid, the critical thinking part of our brain shuts down. A simple, curious question like saying, is this the truth? Where did you get this information from? It actually switches on people's critical thinking part of their brain. So it gives them that moment pause to think, do I really want to reshare this? After we've calmed the conversation, we really look at deepening the dialogue. So how do we use empathy, non-judgment, and reflective questions to get people to reflect on beliefs that may be harmful? So we're really looking at how can we use the social media environment to build understanding and relationships rather than to build hatred and polarization. The third part of the methodology, which is something I'm very passionate about, is, let me just go to these slides, is amplifying the positive. So we take the big data and insights we've collected from public social media, and we work with communities. We all know that communities have incredible knowledge about the problems they're facing and also the solutions. So we work together with communities to build new narratives based on hope-based narrative and narrative therapy. So, to go back to how we use technology, what we've done is we now combined, because this methodology has been so successful, we've combined it with AI. So what the AI does, it detects mis and disinformation and hate speech. It is trained on our methodology to suggest a response, and then a trained digital dialogue facilitator will decide whether to post that response or not. And so we are creating networks of peace builders around the globe. We've got 300 people that are already part of our network who are doing this work and also amplifying the positive narratives online. So the narrative therapy approach, which really connects to the art we're going to do today, it really centers communities as the experts of their own lives and sees human lives as multi-storied and sees the complexity in our humanity. It externalizes problems as separate to our identity and deconstructs dominant narratives that are problematic. Also very important, it makes power dynamics visible in our society, so it really makes inequality visible in the way that we're working. We also use hope-based narratives, where we move from fear to hope. We, rather than focusing on the problem, we focus on the solution. And rather than focusing on what we are against, we focus to what we want in the world. Again, there's incredible neuroscience behind this, so we show people the little action steps that they can take every day to achieve their vision for a better world that is more peaceful and where everyone feels like they are seen and heard and that they belong. So on the screen, these are some examples of designs that we created with peace builders in Somalia. And so they created messages of peace that they could amplify on their social media and in their communities. And then just to finish off, we also have digital school clubs that are focused on preventing online violence against children. Thank you so much.
A really good response. So these methodologies can be used really to transcend that and find our shared humanity. For example, across politics or religion, I think we can all agree that we do not want violence and we want our children to be safe. And so we look at those moments where there is that shared humanity and our shared values and our commonality. And art is a beautiful way of doing this. Also focusing on acknowledging the gifts that other people bring. And by that I mean their skills, their resources, and really acknowledging that people are all contributing in different ways and it's all equally valuable. So I think there's a lot of ways this that can be adapted, that it's not, that it's exactly that it's transcending politics or religion and helping us find our shared humanity, because actually we all do have that and it is so there. It is the disinformation and the polarization that has created these divisions that we can't even talk about these things anymore. So it is taking us, it is a way of taking us into those spaces where we can really reconnect and find each other again.
What has been shared in the reflections and about the world that we would love for our children and our grandchildren. And really the fear around that. I think it's very clear we're in a very difficult time in the world. And it's going to take all of us to dream up a new world where everyone feels seen and heard and that they belong. And we're all a piece in that puzzle. We all have gifts to share, we all have talents, we all have resources. And so this is an activity I do around the world which really excites me. And it's how do we dream up this vision for a new world? And in the small, everyday action steps to get there. So as I was sharing previously, this is based on hope-based narrative methodology, which I was trained in by the UN, and then also narrative therapy. So things are really scary at the moment, and it's really important to acknowledge that fear and that problem, and the problems that we're facing. But we also need to keep hope alive, and we also need to know what are we moving towards. This is an opportunity to co-create something different as the old ways are crumbling. So when, some of this I briefly touched on earlier, but so, for example, instead of saying prevent violence or prevent gender-based violence, we would change to we are looking to create safer communities. So we're really focusing on this vision. So this is a short activity that I hope you can see on the screen. If you can't, you can come and also take a picture. But it's to start getting you thinking in this way. And in this activity, the aim is to create an image, symbol, or a written message to share your vision for a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and that they belong. So think about what positive actions are already happening in communities to prevent violence. What stories could highlight men, women, or communities modeling positive behavior? What is one small action someone could take after seeing this message? There's also some prompts, so you don't have to do all of these, they're just guiding you in making this image. So some of the prompts that are helpful are preventing violence is something we can all do by. One small action we can all take to build safer, respectful relationships is, and what is a message or question that could spark dialogue? So just think of some of these and create an image or a message of your vision for a world that is more peaceful and safer. And you'll have around 6 minutes to do this. If you don't finish it, you can take a picture of this and also finish it at home. It's a useful tool to also use in your communities and your projects to create hope-based narratives that you can then amplify through social media.